Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another Funville dinosaur to take a look at, and as you can see, we don't technically have one, we have two, but it is the same species. We've got ourselves the Triceratops, and you can see that we have two different color variants with this Triceratops, just like we had with the Velociraptor, and yet again they follow the same kind of trend where they have a similar looking design, but different tones of color. Two very cool figures. It almost looks like this was an attempt at more of a natural type of a coloration, and this is almost like a Dino Dan type of color, because the dinosaurs on there are always so bright and colorful, and that's kind of how that one looks, and that's how it reminds me of sort of like a Dino Dan type of a version. But you can see that the packaging looks really cool. I love the fact that we have like this lookout, I roar, and a Triceratops warning sign, and you also can see like a pterosaur flying back there, and the fact that there's a, kind of like a cage right there has a very Jurassic Park feel to the entire product, and I love that aspect of these figures as well. And just like we saw last time, we actually can see here on the back, if we bring this over, you can see that there are different paint variants on each side, but you can get a look at what other figures are included in this line, as we've got the Triceratops, we've also got a Velociraptor, a T-Rex, and Spinosaurus. And if you look over here, you can see what the other color variants of them look like, as we've got green instead of like a purplish Spinosaurus, and like a yellowish version of the T-Rex, which is brown. This Triceratops actually looks a little bit different, honestly, compared to ours that we have over here, because this is the color variant we have here right now to take a look at. You can see kind of light brown stripes, whereas this one's more of a lighter brown with dark brown stripes. Kind of makes me wonder if that paint variant is out there as well. But very interesting, and again, they look super cool here, so let's pop them out of the box and check them out. So here are our Triceratops figures, and again, giving you a better look at them here now out of the packaging. You can see what they look like from both sides. And this time, just like with the Raptors, we kind of have like the sound area up here on the side, whereas the underside is more of like a home for the battery compartment. And the figures aren't super huge. And now I set off the sound effect of it, which definitely has some pretty fun noises to it, but you can see the figures aren't massive, so the side here having the sound compartment is kind of understandable. But one thing that is really great about these figures, you don't see screw holes or anything like that on them, and I feel like they did a pretty good job actually with that kind of sound area, because they put the kind of like orangish tones there inside the holes, which you'll see when we actually get a closer look, so it almost disguises it a little bit. But they look really cool, so let's jump to a closer look at both right now. So we will begin up here at the head sculpt of the brownish version of the Triceratops, and you can see that again, sculpt-wise, it has some really nice looking detail to it. You can see some very nice looking skin texture here in the face of the Triceratops, and as you move up into the frill, you start to get larger scales. You can see the scales start to increase there right after the eye socket area. Leading up, they get huge as you lead up into the frill itself. You've got some very nicely painted eyes with a nice glossy black, which looks really good. You can see there's some nice kind of wrinkling and creasing there in the eye socket area. The nostrils as well are sculpted very nicely. You've got a nice light, kind of like a light yellow there for the beak, as well as the horns of our Triceratops. You can even see some like cracks and crevices in the horns of the Triceratops, which looks pretty cool. And again, here on the underside, some nice looking skin texture. You can actually see the tongue is included there on the inside of the mouth, but it's not actually painted, which would have been a little tough to do considering how small the mouth is, although it looks like it was in two parts originally. But regardless, the tongue is the same kind of like a light tone that we have for the beak. And you can see that we have a pretty cool looking design to the frill of the Triceratops, and we also have the outer kind of spikes running along the frill. They're painted with that same light tone. As you move back a little further into the body of the Triceratops, you continue to see all sorts of really nice looking skin texture and scales and everything throughout. You can kind of see the shoulder blade a little bit right there as you move down. Really nice looking leg sculpt as far as the detailing aspect goes. Really vibrant as well. Kind of have like some very large kind of chunky looking scales there. A little bit of like an osteoderm like look kind of lurking at the top of the front leg here. But as you move down, you can see some nice muscle definition in the leg, kind of like some creasing in the wrist. Very nice looking foot sculpt. The nails are not painted. They weren't painted on the Raptors either. So that's something that maybe Funville could do in the future, would be to paint the nails of their figures. But it still doesn't take away from the figure, especially in this case, because The nails are dark brown, and the body is pretty dark brown, so it doesn't look too bad. But as you move up, you can again see that we have like this yellowish tone. It's like a yellowish brown that runs back along the top of the dinosaur here. And as it leads back, gets to about the hip region, it kind of comes to a point, and then you have like a V type of a design, and then a stripe running over here, another stripe running over here, and then another kind of like a V design right there. Pretty cool looking paint scheme. I actually think that's fairly creative and looks nice as far as the design and everything that we have for the figure. Thinking outside the box a little bit, I would say. And then moving back here into the thigh, again, you've got all sorts of kind of large osteoderms as well as smaller, nice looking scales, nice muscle definition in the thigh as well as the calf. That calf muscle is absolutely bulging there. Honestly, looks like it's about to burst. And then you can see that we've got a nice kneecap in the front, pretty nice looking foot sculpt for the rear foot as well. And then you can lead back up here into the tail. You can see we've got a little area of articulation, and I'm not entirely sure what causes the sound effect or action feature to go off. So I'm not going to articulate the tail yet. I guess that'll be a surprise when we actually get to that part of the review. But you can see you have your average kind of small Triceratops tail like you would expect to see. And then over here, same deal where we have like the same type of sculpt. The legs are in a slightly different position compared to the other side, but not too far off. But you can see that the only real big difference over on this side would be the fact that we have that sound area. And like I had said, when we were kind of looking at the orangish version at ground level there a minute ago, you can see that we have that kind of like brownish coloration within the sound area as far as like the holes. So it helps to kind of match that in. And I guess they just didn't really have like a better area to put that. And I can understand that because the battery compartment takes the majority of the stomach region up right there. So when it comes to disguising this, they did a pretty good job, I think. And again, sculpt-wise, it looks really nice on pretty much every area. They have some beautiful fine detail to the figure as a whole. Fairly nice looking paint scheme and everything. So yet again, another figure that I am honestly quite impressed with, and definitely a very nice figure to help introduce us to Funville and what their potential is. Really can't wait to see more from them in the future. And then the alternate paint scheme that we have this time around is an orangish tone. And again, it's a very bright orange. And then you have basically the same design that we had seen with the other one, but instead of like kind of like a light yellowish brown, we have a purple. And you can see that it follows the same trend as far as the design goes. But again, much brighter colors, and I really feel like it has that kind of Dino Dan feel to it, or nowadays even Dino Dana feel to it when it comes to the brighter tones, because that's the way you always see the dinosaurs kind of portrayed on that show. But definitely another cool looking version, and I love repaints. I always am such a huge fan of alternate paint schemes of different companies' dinosaurs, so I'm pretty excited to see that Funville has already got themselves a few different paint variants of their figures, and now I have both of the Triceratops as well as the Raptors, and both are really cool. Again, even with the brighter tones, I think it actually looks quite awesome, and I would say probably equally as awesome to the brownish version, but again, not too far off, just different tones of color with the same design compared to the original Triceratops we had taken a look at there. And you can also see the detailing actually on the underside, which I didn't really point out on the other one, looks really good as well. So beautifully sculpted Triceratops, and another very cool addition to this Dinos Unleashed line. Now, as far as their articulation and everything goes, I think the tail is going to activate the action feature, but you can see we do have neck articulation. That is part of the action feature. If I push that up, it's probably going to start roaring, so we're not going to do that. But outside of that area, you have leg articulation here, which is insanely smooth. That is absolutely beautiful articulation in that leg. You've also got rear leg articulation, which is just as smooth as the front leg. Wow, that's actually really impressive. It's not often that I find articulation on dinosaurs like this that is just that smooth. That is super smooth. And then, of course, same deal for both sides. You've got the same type of articulation. But then we've also got the tail, and you can see the head already going with the tail. So I would assume that is going to create the action feature, but you can see the tail can go sideways here, back and forth. But let's go ahead, get that action feature going right here. So very, very nice. Actually works perfectly. You've got that kind of rearing up attack for your Triceratops, which is pretty much the exact attack you would want for a Triceratops figure, and it works smoothly and has, again, a pretty cool noise to it. As far as a size goes for the Triceratops, for a length, you were looking at about a little over 8¼ inches, or around 21, maybe 21.5 centimeters, and then for a height, about 4¼ inches, or around 11 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Funville Dinos Unleashed Triceratops figures. And you can see that they are pretty nicely sized, but they're not huge, they're not massive. It's not like the Raptors, where the Raptors were a lot bigger than what you would expect a Raptor figure to be. I think the Triceratops figures are probably right in the size range you would expect them to be. So, very cool to see them again next to these other figures here and get a pretty good idea of their size. But for another size comparison, we've got ourselves one of the Funville Dinos Unleashed Velociraptors here next to our Triceratops. So straight away you can see that there is no actual scale between these figures. They are not to scale with each other, as that is a huge Velociraptor next to a Triceratops. But at least it'll help to, again, show you the size roughly. If you happen to have the Velociraptor and you're interested in grabbing the Triceratops, then this should help to give you an idea of the size. And then when it comes to the size comparison, and the final size comparison, but the comparison that I feel like most people would not only want to see, but would also probably be most useful for my viewers here, would be the Mattel Triceratops, which this is like an old beat up one that I have sitting here for a repaint, next to the Funville version. And you can see the Mattel version is a bit larger than the Funville version, but they're not too far off. The Mattel version, if I actually move this one out of here and kind of bring them both back to give you a better idea as far as the size goes, you can definitely see, again, the Funville version is a bit smaller than our Mattel version here, but I would honestly say they're very similar when it comes to the amount of sculpt and detail that we have in the Funville version compared to the Mattel version. They are definitely not far off from each other, and again, a little bit of a smaller size for the Funville version, but definitely a very, very nice looking Triceratops. So these brand new Funville Triceratops figures are both really cool, really fun releases yet again from Funville, and another very cool addition to this Dinos Unleashed line. And I'm definitely enjoying these figures, and seeing now the Triceratops out of package, the Raptor out of package, having a chance to actually go over them, take a look at them. Again, I'm really impressed with their sculpting and detailing, as well as the playability of the figures, and their paint jobs are pretty fun. So it has me super hyped for anything they're going to create in the future. I really hope that they continue to create dinosaur figures like this. And in fact, I would love to see them create more obscure species maybe in the future as well, because I feel like they definitely have a lot of potential. The only thing, honestly, that their figures are missing, in my opinion, would just be some slight additions to the paint application, like painted nails and maybe a little color on the underneath. And that's honestly about it that I can think of that I would, really give to these figures to improve them. Maybe even like moving the sound compartment to like the underside, but I don't know where you would put it because the figures aren't that huge. So I feel like it's inevitable that it's going to be on the side, and they did a great job of kind of covering that up. So kudos to Funville for that aspect, because not everybody would take that kind of care into their figures to give us something that looks so nice and to kind of hide the area that is that little bit of like an eyesore. Normally, like, those sound areas are the eyesore, but they did a pretty good job, again, of doing their best to hide that. So definitely got to give kudos to them for that. But the sculpts, again, are super nice looking, really highly detailed. Definitely some very impressive detail for a company that is just releasing their first round of dinosaurs. And on top of that, you've got some pretty nice looking paintwork. Again, I like the design that they've given it. They've made sure to paint out all of the spikes and everything as far as the horns and all that stuff goes, the beak. So that is a huge plus. It definitely looks nice with that paintwork on it. And again, the design that they've given to the frill also looks flashy and at the same time natural. So very cool as far as the paintwork goes. And then you also have some super smooth articulation that is just like next level smooth. Like, I was really impressed with how nice the articulation was and how good it works. And on top of that, you actually have the action feature, which sports some pretty cool noises that definitely sound very Triceratops-like to me. So as a whole, two figures that are without question worth picking up. So if you are interested in grabbing these, make sure you head to your local Dollar General, because that's where I found mine. Make sure you grab yourself some of these really cool Dinos Unleashed Triceratops figures, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.